Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Soul Potential CEO podcast. I'm your host, Tia Marie, and I am here today on a bit of a passion-fueled topic. What I want to speak to are some thoughts that have been brewing in my awareness, something that has been emerging as a big conversation in me, in my business, in myself, and in the way that I desire to work with people moving forward. And I was reminded over the past several weeks of things that I have always known, and I'm talking specifically in business, that just came to light in cohesion with my current project and my past project. And I want to chat about it. So today I'm talking about the true cost of online business, big ideas, and the illusion of the spiritual entrepreneur. So if you don't know this about me, my work history is that at the age of 25, I became executive chef of a restaurant in San Francisco, California. At that same age, I had had my first child. I am 46 years old now, and the journey, my entrepreneurial journey, although it started in brick and mortar, was always moving naturally from the current state of creativity, passion, mission, purpose, excitement that I was in to the next natural step for me to expand and evolve, which at that time, 5 years or so after taking over the kitchen to become executive chef, I opened a butcher shop in San Francisco with two other women, where we focused on whole animal butchery. So this may not sound interesting or innovative to you if you are from Europe, but in the United States, back in 2007, it was not a thing. So all of the mainstream meat that had been, or I would say like the way that we shopped in the US, was supermarket. So supermarkets had kind of taken over the industry, and you just went to one store to get your produce and your meat and all of your goods. And the areas in the US where there were like local hubs of bakeries and produce markets and small butchers were really left in city centers that had different cultural areas, like say, like a Chinatown or like Little Italy, like these places. And they were rare, right? So when you would end up in these environments in the States where you could kind of like go to the baker and go to the butcher and go to the produce stand, and go and get beautiful confectionery delights. This was in areas that were kind of like food hubs, and they were bubbles. They were not common. And so back in those times, there was this big emergence of interest in paying attention more to what you eat, wanting to learn to support local food systems. And so for us to open this butcher shop back in 2007, it was innovative. It was kind of new. It was right on the edge of the industry, an industry shift. And I have the ability to see it coming. This is something that I've always been really good at. I've always been very intuitively locked in when I am fully immersed in an industry to what is the next cutting edge. Like I can just see shifts in consumer desire, shifts in collective awareness, opportunities for expansion in the industry. And if I am inspired by the medium, I am fully interested being a part of that shift, not just because I want to be important or I want to be famous or I want to be somebody that everybody recognizes, but mostly because I love to be engaged in my genius. I love to be creative. And so I'm always looking for an opportunity to not, I wouldn't say push myself, but like get into an arena that is fresh, new, being birthed, will interest me, will spark my creativity, right? I'm looking to evolve. So when we started that butcher shop, we, you know, learned a lot, worked a lot, and then I moved into creating in 2010 a national organization to represent the whole support system of this emerging industry. So if you can think about this like a real simple journey, like a blueprint that speaks to my inherent nature as an entrepreneur, it's like I got into a career that I was passionate about, that I knew that I wanted to be a part of. I immersed myself. I learned on the ground floor by being in it, not by thinking about it, not by going to college for it. I knew that I was going to learn on my feet. I knew I needed muscle memory. I knew I needed to be in the trenches. And then I had all of my experiences, kind of achieved my goal and found another pocket of industry where I could apply myself within the context of the original dream and desire. And then I started to pay attention and be aware of the community efforts, the collaborative engagements, and, position myself to stand up as somebody who wanted to be a part of my own conversation and the bigger conversation. All right, so that is my overview of my history. So fast forward 20 years later, I have consulted, started, been a part of a lot of entrepreneurial endeavors. I have always been somebody that is on speed dial. If you know me, when you want to talk about a business idea, I have always been someone who will say to you, oh my gosh, great idea. Go for it. Start it. Invest in it. Learn how to be a part of it. And now I want to shift the conversation to online business. And I want to talk about the true cost of online business. And I think that this is a conversation that literally encapsulates all of the issues that many people who purchase from coaches try to take programs about online business. So I'm mostly talking about spiritual, what people would call quote unquote spiritual businesses, because of course, this is the Soul Potential CEO podcast. And I am someone who has now taken the journey of doing business from my soul. And the majority of people, when they feel that urge, when they feel that pull, when they feel that nudge, they define that as spiritual. It's not the same, but everyone thinks that it is. So I'm going to talk about spiritual business. What do I mean by the true cost of online business? There is this place that people get into learning from online coaches, learning from online programs, taking sales courses, taking sales strategy courses, taking, how to close 100K this week with a high ticket funnel course, the logo package that you need to buy, the website that you need to set up, all of these components that are very crucial to online business. And people are purchasing them and maybe not experiencing the results that they want to experience. And they end up in these places where they feel like they've been sold a lie. And I want to talk about what the biggest lie is here and just make it really simple for you, because the purpose of this conversation is to have a grounded, pragmatic, stable position of awareness when we are embarking on a journey, so that we can set ourselves up for it properly, so that we can know where to look and why, not just where to look, but why we are feeling the impulse to chase down the knowledge that we are chasing down. And the biggest lie with big ideas and online business is that all you need is a big, good, genius idea to get rich. All you need is a website or a podcast or a platform or a kick-ass logo to get rich. All you need is to do that thing that that online guru has done, or get the healing that that seven-figure coach got that changed the game for her or him, and now he's going to share it with you. To get that training on that high ticket funnel so you can close 10 clients next week at $9,000 a pop, and it's smooth, easy breezy. Everything is working out better than you dreamed. If you were opening, and I use this analogy a lot because it's very easy to understand, and I think it brings us back to reality. If you were opening a coffee shop and you had to go and find a place to have your coffee shop, you have to find a physical location. So you go and you find this beautiful little corner cafe with, flowers outside and tables and an awning and a big window, and you can see your logo on that window, and you can see the counter inside, and you can see everybody working, and you can just envision it. Like, you can walk through the business and completely be a part of it, and everybody is happy and humming along, and you're getting to create those pastries that you love to cook with your family, and you've got a really, really great idea about a special drink that nobody else has and nobody else does quite as good as you. And it's going to bring community to your neighborhood. This location is at the corner of a street where there's not a lot of life. It's a perfect location. It's the perfect vibe. It's perfect, right, for you. And you see it and you're like, yes, that is it. And not only is that it, but I can see myself in that life, in that environment, talking to customers, sitting on my day off with my child, hopping by for a pastry, organizing in the city council, maybe donating coffee to firefighters. Like, I can see an entire life for me in that dream. And so when I'm saying yes to it, it makes perfect sense for me to invest in a 3-year lease, in a 5-year lease, and maybe more. I mean, hopefully there's an option. Hopefully there's a 10-year option at the end of that lease. If I've invested, if I'm getting a good opportunity, all of those things are included. And I've got plans for not only 2 years, but 3 years, and then 10 years. And then there's another 10-year option on the back end. And I've created not only a lifestyle, but a legacy, something I can pass on to my children. Maybe I get to buy the building. This is it. This is the thing. The main problem I see with online business, online spiritual entrepreneurs, is that they do not understand that just because you're leading a business online, that it is any different than signing a 5-year lease with the option to renew. If you're serious about it, if it's the right thing. And so people will come to this game with like a very small amount of capital to fund not only their startup, so the supplies that they're going to stock the business with, meaning the coffee cups and the coffee machine and the paper plates and the to-go containers and the staff and the uniforms and the paint on the walls and the tables and the chairs and the flowers and the water bill and the electricity bill and the, taxes, all of these things, right? Like, it's mind-blowing. But then because you have an idea, because you have a big idea and it's coming from a part of you that is like wanting to utilize your soul gifts, you first of all don't even take it as seriously as you would the idea of selling coffee. But you don't understand that selling yourself, selling your ideas is not as easy to articulate as it is to sell a cup of coffee. If I asked you if you wanted a cup of coffee, you would already know what that is. You might ask me, well, where do you get your beans from? What kind of milk do you use? What's your technique? Did you, where did you source it? But I would already know when you presented that to me if I like to drink coffee or not. I would also already know if I'm somebody who would prefer to drink drip coffee out of my coffee maker at home, because I am someone who doesn't want to spend $8 on a Americano. Or if I'm someone who enjoys my ritual of coffee, and one of my treats is to go out on the weekend and buy a pastry and a cup of coffee. And not only do I invest in that, but I love it. I want to be a part of it. I've decided it's what I value. So my sell is easy, or it's not, but you don't have to educate me about what that is. Your soul gifts that are so unique to you, your spiritual gifts that are so unique to you, are a much quote unquote harder sell, because you need to be the one that understands them deeply enough in order to create the value proposition, in order to test your theory, in order to know what the results are. And maybe you've invested in a modality, or maybe you've built your business around astrology or human design, or something that people already understand. A brand, a spiritual brand, right? That's Reiki, right? A spiritual brand that when I say the words, I'm like, oh, I kind of have an idea of what that is. Akashic records, shadow work, archetypes, the mother wound, the witch wound. Oh my God, right? These are brands. These are spiritual brands. Tarot. Like, just slow down and let's think. Let's have a non-mysterious conversation about online business and spirituality. These are recognizable if you've been in the space long enough. If you're somebody who's completely not even involved at all, you'll just be like, well, what is that? I don't know what that is, right? But more and more people are part of the esoteric spiritual conversation. This has happened over the years because of life science, because of the evolution of data that studies human behavior and the new age spiritual movement. And so the field has been permeated with spiritual lingo and buzzwords. And there are brands out there of spirituality, or what I would call like identity strategies that allow people to somehow create an identification of themselves from the paradigm or the methodology that they've engaged in. And so when you drop a brand name in the field of online spiritual business, and not everybody is doing it online, but I'm talking about online, it creates that brand recognition. So perhaps at that point, your job becomes a little bit easier. This is why people really flock to these things in their own bodies of work, because it creates a doorway for people. And if it's attached to an identity, then they've already identified themselves as that. And it like leaves you off the hook on a whole other level of how much education you have to do for a potential client to understand how to orient themselves to your work. And I'm using all of this to explain the fact that the idea that you can start a business that should be successful and make money for you 1 month, 2 months, 3 months after you finish launching your website, after you throw a Canva logo up on a Squarespace site and put an offer link up for a session, that all of a sudden you should know how to be successful in that business because you've only had a very small amount of money to invest. You didn't have capital set aside to sustain 1 year, 2 years of internal growth, of giving yourself the time to learn how to sell, how to market, how to execute on programs, how to be a leader, how to, staff your team, how to do video content. Like, the fact that this is not included in the conversation is a really big failure proposition, because you would never have a conversation with somebody who just opened a coffee shop with $6,000. And then when they came and said, oh, I'm really busy, really busy at home. And, my energy is really low. And I just feel like I'm not super aligned with the types of people that are coming in here to buy coffee. And, I don't have the money to pay for payroll next month. And I couldn't buy any more coffee beans. And I can't afford the electricity. And I don't actually even know how to run a register. Like, I don't know how to get this going. Like, you would look at that person and be like, are you crazy? Like, what did you, like, it's so obvious. You're like, what did you think was going to happen? But yet We find ourselves in these conversations and situations in online business all the time without the grounded, stable, pragmatic, realistic thinking about what we're actually engaging in, and the fact that there's an even steeper learning curve, and we're beating ourselves up about it. This is not fair to you. This is not fair to the decision that you made to create in a new way from part of you that is deeply, deeply dreaming and desiring to express your gifts in the world. Doesn't seem right, but it's like having, and so this is why these two tracks of entrepreneurial examples here, like the coffee shop metaphor is like, it's pretty cut and dry. You got to have a couple $100,000, you got to pay for inventory, you got to get it all set up. There's a blueprint, there's a model, there's a blueprint. You could find examples of other successful businesses. It's not a mystery. But this is why the spiritual online business is so mysterious to so many people, because they're actually thinking that all that is required is just to put the idea out there and have a rudimentary system of a few things that would facilitate a sale and a recognition, right, of what it is that you offer, and that should be enough. And my point is not that business can't work for you in whatever way you choose it. But my point is that you should not tell yourself that you haven't succeeded at something merely because you don't understand what it is that you're doing. So you could be somebody who only does just a one simple session with someone or with your clients, and you end up slowly building that over time, just working one-on-one, just working, getting your clients referral based, word of mouth. You don't have to sell. You don't even have to have a website. You don't have to have a big, bold brand, because the work speaks for itself and you've built it organically. It's like somebody who has a secret tomato chutney in the neighborhood. It's legendary. And or like a homeopathic cold remedy, right? Like, like somebody like the grandma in town who makes the most insane loaf of sourdough, and she starts selling it to her neighbors, and then her neighbors have friends over for dinner, and her friends taste the bread, and then they're like, where did you get this? And then all of a sudden, not even because she wants to or wanted to, she has a business because people are coming to her for the thing that she created out of love, the thing that she created out of the fact that it was her desire to just master this one thing. And she's really, really good at it. And so the business starts to build itself. That's one way you can do it, which is totally low cost, low investment. Like, yeah, it could take 5 years, 10 years, who knows, maybe never if you don't talk about it enough. Like it's just an organic process. But then there are also the businesses that have ideas that are conceptual, that like you are paying rent on your ideas for a while, just like you would pay a lease on a building for your coffee shop. And when you are paying rent on your ideas, you need to have a realistic expectation about how much time that takes. And the fact that not only are you going to be the cashier, the salesperson, the brewer, the barista, the coffee roaster, the marketer, the janitor, the cleanup crew, the one who's restocking. Like if you are starting off a business as a solo spiritual entrepreneur, stepping up to sell a deep dream, like you are all the roles typically in the beginning. So you have to also create some time to learn all of those skills. The reason why the bio of your latest online guru that you follow on Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and read their inspirational quotes, the reason why their bio starts with I ran and sold 4 successful step tech startups before I ... The reason why their bios say that are because they already had the blueprint in their bones of what it meant or means to run a business. They have substantiated their theory of starting a business, making it profitable, managing, being a leader, turning thought into reality. And they've done it a handful of times. So now that they've gained that skill, they get to do it on their terms. And there's a lot of them out there that are kind of turning into this soul conversation. Like they're not saying it that way, but they're talking about the lifestyle that they want to live. They're saying, I had a Fortune 500 company, or I was part of, this tech startup, and then I sold my share, and like I realized I was just slaving away, and I didn't want to do that again. So I started to think, like, how can I take this skill and then travel like I want to? How can I work less? How can I have more work-life balance? But what they took with them, and what a lot of people aren't looking at, is they already had that business blueprint. So you'll see people in the online space using their business blueprint, using their skill blueprint to prop up all of the things that they're selling, without explaining to you that that is the reason why they're successful. That is the infrastructure behind what it is that they're selling. And we think it's mysterious. We think it's an energetic thing only, or we think it's a sales thing only, or we think it's because we cannot hear our inner voice clear enough to give us clarity only. It's not that those are the roles that I'm talking about in the coffee shop. Like you have to actually understand all of the aspects of that in order for you to know where to look at which stage of your development and growth is important to look at. What you also see in the online space a lot are people who are in these crash and burn cycles, selling to you like, I was in business. I just want to be clear about this. Like they're selling you the internal conversation that you're having with yourself. So you're struggling through the muck of getting your online business up and going because you don't understand that it actually probably required that you have 3 years worth of money set aside, that you need to invest in a team who understands you, that helps you get in the trenches with your business, that really like lays solid foundational groundwork, like that you take the time to master your one-on-one session. If that's what you're into, you take the time to master the course or product or program that you're working on. You take the time to build up the brand, that you learn how to market yourself in some form in a way that feels natural and good to you and your body. Then your energy stops crashing. Like all of these things, like that you take the time, that you spend 1, 2, 3 years building that. A lot of people in the online space that are coming out with big success stories are like, it was year 5, it was year 7 where everything tipped for me. Why do you think that is? It was year 5, it was year 7, because that's how long it took to train in the online business school of you. So you see these people who are selling you the internal conversation that you're having with yourself, which is like, I just, I created so much, and then I just crashed. I had a nervous breakdown. I found out the money didn't matter. I made, $1.6 million in the past 4 years. And here's what I learned. I had problems with teams. I had people betray me. I got sick. I couldn't keep the energy up. But then I learned that I was a 5-1 generator. And I leaned into that identity strategy. And now my business is smooth sailing. I'm coasting along. And you're like, oh, thank God, because I have been going through the same thing. And I just can't figure out what it is that is off. And so it must be that. The concept of Enneagrams and personality tests in business is not new. In fact, corporations use these things so that people can start to tap in to the internal conversation and identifications that their customers, or not their customers, their employees have for productivity, so that they can get their employees to work better in teams, to be happier. Everybody's working on mindset in the workplace because we have all these people who have low emotional intelligence and distorted thinking, and humans spend a lot of time bickering. This is not rocket science, right? So you got to see the parallels here, and just, the purpose of this conversation is just to have a realistic back and forth with ourselves about what's really going on so that we can invest in the right places. Why do people crash? Why is this journey hard? Why is there so much to learn? Why isn't it easy? Well, really, the way that I see it is that we just have an unrealistic expectation of what we're stepping into from the get-go, right? We don't understand the true cost of online business. Just because you can buy a URL for $27.99, throw up a website for $500, and hit record on your phone doesn't mean that that is the true cost of online business. You're not thinking about all of the other things that come into play. And at the same time, it doesn't also mean that what I just described couldn't totally work for you. But when you are looking at what other people are doing and using that as a way to just say, oh, well, this person just, her TikTok channel blew up and now she made $1 billion. Like, that is an illusion. That's an illusion. I want to talk about 3 things that will help you just to, put some roots in. If you're in this space and you understand what I'm saying and you're starting to desire to have a more practical conversation with you about your investment, if you want more integrity, if you want to listen to a conversation about online spiritual business and soul-led business that is of integrity, here are some things to think about. operating costs and investment projections apply to online business. Set yourself up for success and give yourself the time to learn the skills. Don't be dramatic. Don't beat yourself up. Find a mentor or someone who has team support, or, do it by yourself if you want, but like I said, it's like this idea that we should just know everything is absurd. I listened to a podcast that Alex Hormozy shared when he was talking about how he just assumed that he wasn't good at math. And he's like, I just have always told myself, like, I'm just not good at math. And then he realized that it's like, what am I talking about? It's how do I know if I'm good at math if I'm not trying to learn math? Like, I love the way that he thinks about just like practical, like, how can I say this? Like, he does the math. He's like, if I spend 6 hours a day studying math for 6 months, well, that's more than what 90% of people on this planet are willing to put in when it comes to learning something. And so it just logically makes sense that at some point I will be better than 90% of people if I focus on this thing repeatedly and stay committed to it. And it's so simple in that way, right? And he also says, like, the idea that you think that you should just naturally be good at things that you haven't invested in, that you haven't been willing to, like, really pay for in money, time, focus, attention, lifestyle, whatever. And then you tell yourself that you're not good at it is just like not very fair to you. It's not cool to you. It's not nice. It's not a nice way to treat yourself. And I feel the same about online business. And what bothers me about it is that there are so many people out here who have beautiful things to share with the world that have been sold into this quick fix, quick pill, strategy conversation. And I feel the same way. I'm just like, that's not cool, man. Like, I don't like that. I don't like how it feels. I'm not willing to keep being a part of that. I don't want to sell that smoke to people. I want to actually be honest about what it takes, what I have learned, and start having like a conversation that props people up for success. And I like that. I like to hear those types of conversations. So that is how I feel. Number 2, paying to get behind the scenes in a business, right? So hiring a coach to learn their strategy, or taking a program to understand what it is what secret they have that you don't have, is really about learning how to run an online business in the same way that you would take a coffee roasting class. And so there's a lot of people who feel victimized by this reality, but you wouldn't feel victimized by taking a coffee roasting class if you don't know how to roast coffee. Just like it makes no sense to be victimized by taking a class on sales if you don't know how to sell, or a class on, how to execute a program if you've never executed a program. The reason why people get bamboozled and victimized is that they don't understand what they're buying. Like, the context isn't correct because everybody wants a get rich quick scheme. You're not coming to the conversation of the purchase with a real expectation. You're attracted to the drama, to the I just sold a 50K package, right? Without everything underneath it. Because of course that sounds great. And so if you see somebody say, I just sold a 50K package, and then you're following this person and they say it every day, my client just sold this, my client just sold this, my clients just sold this could be you too. All you have to do is tweak 2 words in your message. All you have to do is change the way that you're, showing up online. All you have to do is this. All you have to do is this. Like, this invitation is why people feel distrustful. That's number 2. Number 3, you are confused and clamoring and frustrated and desperate in your business if you are not fully in your business, right? If you are not in a situation where all the aspects of how you need to grow are being supported. That is an internal game, first and foremost, meaning that you have a comprehensive awareness of what you've said yes to, that you're willing to learn, that you're willing to make mistakes, that you're willing to stay committed, that you're willing to quote unquote pay rent on your ideas for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and that you're not doing it like, I just don't have time. I only have a little bit of time. Like, how successful do you think a coffee shop would be if it was open on Saturdays from 3 to 5 p.m. and then the rest of the week whenever it felt like it or whenever it could get a moment in? Do you think that a customer base could grow around that? Or this concept of like, oh, I just hate social media. It's so exhausting. Well, then don't be in an online business. That would be like a coffee shop being like, I just hate putting an opening and closing door sign on the door. So exhausting. Why do people need to know what I sell? Like I'm just saying, like, let's transfer this conversation, like create a metaphor in your mind when you find yourself going to these places that like are like, oh, this doesn't make sense. It's real simple. And the most powerful thing, and I want to leave you with this because I know this is a bit of a rant. I feel like it needs to be said. But what is on the other side is beautiful, is amazing. If you feel passionate, if you have a dream, if you love what you are here to create, if this is your calling, it is worth every second and more. It is worth every penny, every struggle, every challenge, every bit of growth. You create freedom in yourself. You become the person who can hold your dreams better than you could imagine. If you've got a taste for it, if the spark is alive for you, do it. Like I have been geeked out on, nerded out on online business since 2007. Meaning that I was an early adopter. I had an online membership in 2010. Okay, so I've been here for a long time. I love it. I've never stopped loving it. I've never been bored. I've never stopped loving to learn more about it. I don't get frustrated when tech changes, when software changes, when trends change, when what I thought I was going to be like a marketing strategy 6 months ago is obsolete. I don't get upset about the constant shifting, growing, dynamic landscape that is online business. It excites me. I love every second of it. Why? Because I like to stay engaged. I like to be creative. I like to be, riding the wave of potential. That's who I am. And I love the place that it allows me to remain in a constant state of here and now. Like I'm doing what I'm doing right now, and it could change tomorrow. Like that's innovation. I get to apply myself so deeply in an arena where I have influence, where the next conversation I have could be a game changer, or the next conversation I choose not to have means that I didn't tap into that thread. Like this for me is perfect. And if you like that, if you have the constitution for it, what I want you to know is that you really should set yourself up for success. And this conversation, I hope, helps somebody give themselves a break, set realistic expectations, and go all in. Like go all in. One of the things that I have been personally leaning into for myself in how I serve clients for the past year is this idea. And it's so funny because I was just seeing this coach the other day talking about how like they're like, I don't want to work with people for a year. And I'm like, I do. I want to work with people for a year on anything. In fact, I don't want to work with people not in close proximity. And I'm talking about like one-on-one for short bursts, because that does not support in my world. Like I'm here for the long game. I know how much I learn in 1 month, in 6 months, in 1 year. I know what it means to have consistent team support that understands how to support growth from soul potential. I know what it means to stay in a place of innovation, and I know how much it takes too. And so I want to help people who actually want true success, who value that investment, who are willing to invest in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, not only in themselves, but in what they're here to create, so that they can eventually see the full blossoming of their dreams into reality, into ideas. And I want to be a part of committed creation, things that are good for the soul, right? A journey. And so if this is something that speaks to you and you want to reach out to me, I do have just a few spots for one-on-one work in the context of this type of conversation. With my agency, we really support people deeply in this way, but you have to be all in. You have to go all in. I hope you loved this conversation. I hope you loved hearing me say it like it is. And if you do, you can always reach me at magic@sanatia.com. You can find me online on socials. You can sign up for my Soul Potential CEO newsletter. You can listen to this podcast. There's links in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.